Hello, good morning. Today is the new day of the new year, January 29th, 2021. This year is really exciting for us because almost every day we have brilliant people join us to discuss software. Today we have Josue, a really ambitious young software engineer. Um, from what Josue and I talked about, this really interests me because you seem to be in your career getting to the point where you're the end user's advocate rather than just pursuing um, geekery or being a nerd who just thinks about coding. It's more like, okay, so what is this good for, and what can this how can this help people, right? So I'd really like to delve deeper into that because that's the topic that I'm really interested in. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to that position, and how do you see yourself in the future? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, I think you just hit the nail right on the head because that is at the point of my career that I'm at. So everything, I think, like everything started a couple of years ago, and I've been working as a software engineer for a while now, and I've been working in different environments or different contexts. So I've been doing like some e-commerce, and also I had the opportunity to work at the University of Texas, and I think that actually helped me a lot with focusing more on the user because you have to get to know the students or whoever it is that is actually using what you're building. I was also able to build some science gateways for the University of Texas, and that's very interesting because you have to work very closely with the scientists that are actually using these gateways, because that way you need to figure out like what exactly is their workflow, and then trying to build a product or an application that's actually going to help them step by step. So that's I mean that was totally different than what I'm doing right now. Right now I'm working at GoDaddy, but it's also user focused what I'm doing a little bit more. But I think that helped me a lot because that's where I actually uh, I got to realize the value of working with the user, and then realize that actually what we're doing as software engineers is just building tools to help users, because code by itself, it doesn't really do that much, right? You need some domain knowledge. You need a little bit more of it. So tool, the code itself, software, it's a tool, and the whole point of it. I mean, we build it and we create it. This is just like everything is just made up, really. It's just like languages that we're making up over here, and all of that is just really to help humans to either do things faster or do more things that they couldn't do before. So I do believe that software needs to focus over that, like needs to focus a little bit more on how can we help the users more, which now you can see like there's a new wave of like startups and stuff like that, new companies, smaller companies, just trying to focus a little bit more like that, or at least the marketing of them, it's a little bit more like that, like let's help users to do this, let's we're supporting users to do this sort of thing. But the actually the bug doesn't stop there, because we need to go a little bit farther from that and also take into consideration the user's interests. And for instance, in 2021, really some of those interests will be something like privacy and all the data that different applications are actually hoarding from you and all that. So all of those kind of decisions that are made in every applications, we as software developers, we should also have a say on that. Like you're gonna get a list of features, and somebody's gonna tell you these are the things that you need to implement. You need to ask the question, like, why do I need to do this? Is this okay? Like they are paying you to write code, that's okay, but they are also paying you to think about what you're writing. It's not just you're not just a machine just spitting out code. So it's always good to get a little bit more involved into those decisions, right? And then actually understand what's behind it. And sometimes the solution is not what they are asking you. Sometimes it's okay, if we're seeing that users are having trouble on this, well, maybe what we need to do is I don't know, change the way that the user experience actually goes, something more like that, instead of just let's just build another feature on top of this. So I think those are things that are sometimes disconnected, because as software engineers, we are very focused on how can we write better code, how can we write more code, or how can we maintain code, or how can we write like code that is going to be either stable for longer, or all that, which is good. I think that's something that we should always need to think about, because it's always tricky to write new code or to modify existing code. But also the end point of this is the user. So we also need to think about how can we write better code to fit the user's interests and to help the user a little bit better.
Wow, that's great. So what I think, and correct me if you disagree, but what you hinted at is something I keep talking about a lot. It is that when we are on the job, and you know, the beauty of this profession is sometimes you get to write your own job description, right? You enter
Yeah.
with one, but then you really have flexibility, and that's why we like this profession, and it's very creative. But I always tell people you have to kind of make up your mind in general terms. Do you see yourself as a caterer or as a nutritionist? I like to use that metaphor because a caterer is an order taker. Like, you just
Mhm.
customer says, "Look, I would like this," and you just take the order, and to the best of your ability, you deliver. Whether you're delivering pizza or software, you just tailor to the expectation. But there's another possibility as a role, maybe with more experience and more education and etc. And growing your reputation, you may act as a nutritionist. And so you may say, look, okay, I recommend, I know you think this is a good solution, but I recommend to you maybe change your diet or uh, try this. I think this may fit you better. So now you are forging a partnership with your users and you're guiding them. You're almost coaching them and saying, look, you've been maybe abused in the past by some really half baked or not that good. But you think that's how things should be. So now you're expecting the same. But let me tell you, there is a better way. Let me show you, right? And that also is a very, I think, important part of our profession is to step into that role and to say, I know you so far you've been experiencing these like not that great uh, products that give you like pretty bad experience, but you think that's the only way to go. So now you asking me to give you the same kind of thing, right? So for example, people who have been using bad operating systems like Windows in the
Mhm.
past was really bad, and now they expect every application to be that clunky. And then some people go and say, Apple goes and say, no, it doesn't have to be that clunky, and you can have a more elegant and more pleasant experience, right?
Yeah.
So that's I just want to see if you agree with that and whether how you see yourself as a caterer or as a nutritionist in this kind of arrangement.
Yeah, I do agree that there is that evolution as a software developer. And I think like in general, whenever you start on a new craft, you're always first a little bit more of a caterer, because you don't have the insights of all the different possibilities that you could do. So in the beginning, when you started writing code, you're probably just spitting out like maybe copying things that are already out there, or just like implementing whatever it is that they're telling you to implement. Right? You start figuring things out, and then you start getting that insight of, okay, well, maybe this is not the best way to implement it. Or I mean, everything really starts with questioning about things that you have to do, right? How come we have to do these things, and how do we what or why do we need to do them in this specific way? And I think that's very important, because also we need to remember that software is not only built by software developers. It's built in teams, right? There's always these different type of knowledge that are coming into this kind of like big box, and then eventually software developers are the ones that are actually typing the words, right? Or the commands in a computer. But there's other stuff before it. So as software developers, we need to do that. We need to be that kind of like net that encompasses everything, and then I go and ask them, like, okay, what is it exactly that you're asking here? And try to understand that, right? I mean, it's always a little bit difficult, and I think it's a lot to ask sometimes from software developers. But I mean, sadly, that's the way that software is right now. I mean, that's the state that we are at. Like, there is really no easy way to jump that hoop, right? There's no easy way to go. Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna sit down and go and I'm going to start implementing whatever it is in this document. That never actually works well. You need to go out and ask them, okay, what exactly is it that you were trying to do? Can you show me here? Can you show me an example or something like that? So that's when you start becoming a nutritionist, right? As you were saying. So then you can give a little bit more input and go like, okay, maybe we need to do it this other way and all that. But it's not only like it is a nutritionist, but it's not only on not everything actually is on the software developer's plate. Like it's a team effort between multiple people. So that's why I think it's very hard for some developers that are starting to go from like beginner to what we sometimes call senior or more experienced, or as a more experienced developer, right? Because you need to jump that hoop on like your job is not only about writing code, but also about talking to other people and figuring out what exactly is it that needs to be done and what's the best way to do it. So it's outside the computer, it's outside the code itself. And that I think that's difficult, but it's something that we always need to do. And the worst part is that as a software engineer, what happens is that whenever you move to another job or you start a completely new project, you start from the beginning again. You first go like, okay, let me start implementing these features just to get a sense of what the project is about, and then start getting to know these people that are involved in the project, and then eventually you become that person that can give some really good insights. Of course, like with more experience, that learning curve it's shorter, but this is something that we are constantly doing. I don't know if that also happens in other jobs or in other areas, but I mean, I think that that's pretty unique for a software developer, which is cool.
Yeah. So what basically you are hinting at is what we are experiencing sooner or later, and this is the so-called DevOps revolution, which started about 10 years ago, I believe, or maybe less. But before the DevOps and before the Agile, and I remember because I was young back then and starting my career, and it was exactly how you describe it. You are an order taker, and they say, okay, look, this is your task, and you go in your corner and you just do it, and you have no contact with anybody or anything. When you're done, you say, okay, I'm done. They review it. Okay, if it's good, it goes into production. If not, you need to fix something. But it was very clear separation between coding and then whatever else is involved, and even to the point where you're coding but you're not actually running the system. There's operations crew, IT operations, who take that and deploy it and whatnot,
Mhm.
and that didn't work well, really well, right? So eventually, smart people started thinking, okay, we gotta find a way. They found extreme programming and agile, and then that evolved into DevOps. So today, one thing that you talked about, and I just give it a different name, we are very big on partial delivery,
Mhm.
because before DevOps, we were doing the waterfall, and the
Yeah.
waterfall is based on Big Bang. You wait. People are working, and then Big Bang,
Yeah.
everything is complete and delivered, and there you go, Mr. Customer, enjoy. And that didn't didn't have good success rate. It was pretty lousy. So we realized that Big Bang does not, or big plan upfront, where you just plan everything and you're like, okay, we just go and do it. It takes some time, and by the time you're done, your plan is not that accurate
Yeah.
anymore, right? May have been accurate back when you made it, right? But things change, right?
Yeah.
So, right, yeah. And so, like you say, now we need a whole team involved from the day one,
Yeah.
instead of you guys go away, spend 6 months, we'll wait for you, and then come back and we will celebrate. So now you're looking more at from the day one, all hands on deck. Software development, completely correct. It's a team effort. It's
Hmm.
not individual, and also it's a skin in the game. You cannot
Yeah.
have people sitting on in bleachers and just cheering and waiting. And no, you have to be on the floor, boots on the ground, right? And not only engineers, but like you say, also other areas, customer representative or even customer themselves with the team, as well as business, as well as domain expert and
Yeah.
security and the whole shebang, right? Everything has to be there so that we, on in short iterations, keep delivering and keep getting feedback. And then they say, "All right, you're going in the right direction, but you don't need this." And this improves the quality, has been
Hmm.
kind of demonstrated, right? That if we are doing these partial delivery, and everybody has to be acclimatized to the idea of partial delivery, because we still see people who cannot grok it, who are like expect things to be with a bow tie, like whatever we deliver, there should be complete.
Yeah.
And then when they see us engineers going back and refactoring, doing rework, then they get upset. They're like,
Yeah.
why are you changing something that you already worked on? Right? They don't appreciate that. But that's the only way for us to work, right? Is to keep refining, iteration, right? And that's the new culture, the new discipline that you just described in how you see things. Um, but one thing I wanted to maybe discuss with you is all these systems you are building
Hmm.
and supposed to serve end users' needs, right? And give them power and whatnot. They are all based on the self-serve model, right? For example, if I want to travel somewhere, which I cannot do now because Canada
Yeah.
is restricting travel, but before you go to a travel agent and
Hmm.
back and forth, and the travel agent understands where you want to go, and they find you the best deal, and here's your package, and then you take your plane ticket and whatnot, and you go and travel.
Yeah.
But now that has been replaced by uh, what's the word, Expedia, or what's the
Yeah.
I,
There's Expedia.
Expedia? Yeah, so I don't
Mhm.
have to actually go to my travel agent. I can just
Yeah.
now log into Expedia, and I can. But this is self-serve, right?
Hmm.
And that is being sold to us as progress, as improvement. But in my mind, it's regression, because I can tell you, and probably you have a similar experience, when we are about to travel, I can spend days browsing, and
Yeah.
I'm wasting so much time. And at the end of the day, I'm not getting any better deals than I would have gotten from my travel agent, right?
Yeah.
So this self-serve is a bit of a, I don't know how to call it, a bit of a swindle, because
Hmm.
okay, I would agree if someone says, look, if you go to the travel agent, then your package is going to be more expensive because the travel agent is doing legwork. But
Yeah.
now that you're doing your own legwork, everything's going to be cheaper. But that's not the case. The price is the same, right?
Yeah.
So I feel swindled. I feel tricked into doing somebody else's work and paying for it, right?
Yeah.
So what I think also is missing in today's culture when it comes to user overall journey is we need to build systems that offer full serve,
Hmm.
similar to. So I just go in and say, look, I want to travel to Rome, Italy, and then the
Yeah.
system works on my behalf and figures out the best deals and sends it from my review. Same as travel agent, but we don't have it. The system expects me to hold its hand step by step, and
Yeah.
that is something that I think is sorely missing from today's software engineering. Is this idea that we should build a intelligent system that can work on behalf of the end user and come back with most quality solution. So do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's true, or at least partially true, what you're saying. And but I think the issue also that's always gonna be tied to software is that software is highly driven by companies, right? So
Mhm.
it's something that's built. I mean, we software developers we see it as art, partially, but in reality, this was created just to sell more things, right? So, and all of that actually, and if you think about that, then this is what's driving the state that we are in the way that you're describing it. Because for a company, it's better to not have as many people in the on front desk, because those people, like they're going to have less employees, they're going to have less people to pay them money to, not so much pay less money in total, because maybe they're paying a little bit more to a couple of engineers, but they have less people hired, employed. So, and that's like less paperwork and all that, and that's what makes it seem like it's a progress, I believe, because companies are saying, well, we're progressing, we're going towards the future, because now I don't need a physical place to actually sell my stuff, and I don't need to pay electricity and to pay water and to pay a couple of salesperson to or people to actually sell my stuff. I can just hire a team of engineers, and then I'm going to have a brand new e-commerce site, and then I'm going to start selling stuff, right? The same thing with just like finding a trip or something like that. But you're right. Now people are spending more time just browsing through stuff, maybe through Amazon, maybe through Expedia or whatever it is, and then just doing the work of a salesperson that they were supposed to be like trained and all that to actually give you like the best package and all that and work with you, but like what are your needs, and this is the things that we have that actually fit your needs. So now all of that work goes to the user, but people don't see it like that, because also there's the other issue that most of the users, they don't actually like feeling maybe just like tricked, or well, actually that's the way that you are feeling right now. But the thing is that it's because you know what goes behind the technology. But non-technological people, they actually think that this is also towards the future, because they go like, well, I don't have to deal with a human being that they're probably going to lie to me. The thing that I'm doing is that I'm the one that is choosing the things that I actually want to buy. There is nobody else trying to push things down my throat, right? And I think that's the reason why people see it as this is the future. But I think that this is just an interim step, really, because I mean, software itself, it's very young, and if we look at it, I mean, you're right. Right now, most of the sites that I actually visit, I mean, again, as a software engineer or a developer, you're always looking at sites and going like, well, this sucks. This user experience, it's really not good, and they're probably just using this other thing that is wrong, something like that, right? So I think all of these different user interfaces and applications that we see out there in the wild, they're actually not very well thought out, but not because they don't want to. It's first of all, it's because they need to iterate over it, as you were saying, right? I mean, we always need to iterate over products, and the very easiest first step is to go like, okay, this is the thing that we're gonna sell. Let the user choose what they want to buy, right? I mean, still, of course, there's like marketing around it and all that, and sites or applications or everything that actually sells you things that it's written with software, and they're actually built in a way that you're going to click the things that they want you to click. But it's still, the decision is on you, right? And everything to actually research around it, it's going to be your task. You need to do that. You need to go ahead and then just try to see if this is the best scarf for you, or whatever shoes or something like that. And companies are never going to do that. The only thing is that I think this is eventually going to move into something that's a little bit more. There's more of a relation between whatever application we're using and us, because right now it's more about let me click these things, and we're moving into that because of like virtual assistants. Right now you're asking things to Siri or to Google and stuff like that, and I think that's the first step. But it's, I mean, we still haven't nailed it down, but eventually I believe that these things, the interaction between human and computer, is not going to be like a mouse or a keyboard. right? I mean, it has to be something that's a little bit more human friendly, right? And something that's a little bit more like a conversation, because that's how we humans, we always get answers. I mean, you can read the documentation, I mean, for instance, for software, for a library, if you want, but it's always better to talk to a peer and go like, hey, what do you think about this, and do like a back and forth. So that back and forth is what's missing from this interaction. And eventually, I mean, I think we're gonna get there, but the only thing is that I think there's still so many other things to actually go through
I'm not
in
referring
order to
to
get
the,
there.
I'm not referring to the human machine barrier or how things are going to
Mhm.
interact. I'm referring to the intention of the business. And what you said, I kind of disagree, because I remember the first time I became acutely aware of that was about 7 years ago. I was hired to
Yeah.
lead by some startup fintech financial, and I was hired to lead
Mhm.
to design the system. And I remember at one point we had a meeting, and I was describing something, and the boss stops me and says, "Alex, you don't understand. What we're doing here is we're trying to trick people into doing our work and paying us for that." So
Yeah.
it's not by accident, it's by design that these people see profit in abusing end users and tricking them, so that your business, like you say, we don't need to hire call center, you don't need to hire a lot of staff to do the paperwork. You push all on the end users and charge them for that. That's pretty underhanded and unethical, right? And so we need to talk about ethics in our profession. People do not are not even aware that they're being tricked. They, because the propaganda sells it to them as, this is for your own benefit. Wow, you can, from your own bedroom you can do all that. I know, but I'm doing your work, and I'm paying you for the privilege to
Yeah.
do your job. So I think that needs to change. uh, and lately I've been seeing some disillusionment where UX people, where U stands for user and X stands for experience, are now complaining that
Mhm.
has been perverted into user exploitation. X stands for exploitation now instead of experience. So all these businesses are looking at ways to exploit us for their own profit. So they're not on our side, right? They're actually taking advantage of our naivete, or, like you say, people are not really, still it's novelty, and they don't realize that they're being actually exploited heavily. And this has
Yeah.
been told as, this is for your own good, this is for your own benefit. Look, this is awesome. Well, we need to kind of raise the awareness that no, I'm not going to do your legwork and pay for the privilege to do your legwork. And to your point, there is a way, yes, we want to run a profitable business by reducing headcount, because that's a big liability and big overhead. But you can do that with software. And what I'm saying is we should focus on building software that is not offloading chores to the end users, but is automating those chores, so that you can have intelligent systems that know the domain and know how to do proper, heavy lifting and chores, so that we, the users, benefit from paying for all that, for quality service. And the economy of scale should then bring the price down. It becomes commoditized, and now we are enjoying the real prosperity. But at this point, it turned into a ugly exploitation, right? Where everything,
Yes.
everything these companies are doing is building software that's going to just make us stupider and take advantage, suss out as much information from us. So we need to push back, because things are not looking good at this point. That's why I was really interested in talking to you, to see how far you've gotten, and where do you think next steps would be.
Yeah, yeah, and I do think that, like, I mean, that's obviously, very obviously happening. I think that also it's because the entire boom. Like, right now we're using technology for a lot of different things that maybe we shouldn't be using it, or maybe we're just like overloading things with technology. So that's why companies are selling these different things, going Like technology is better for you because it's the new thing and this is the future, right? But as you're saying, like really, it's more like exploiting the user in different ways, right? Either getting the information from them, or just making them actually do what the company should actually be doing. And uh, and I think like actually the future of this is that eventually people are gonna realize it. Right now it's a little bit hard to convince companies to move towards that because they're making a lot of money
Yeah,
with this business model. And I mean, whoever is gonna come up to them and say like, well, the thing is that you need to actually be better with the users, and then instead of asking them to browse everything that you have, try to offer them things in an easier, more kind of like digestible way. So people are trying to do that, but by doing that, now we have a lot of different sites, for instance, that they give you different lists of top 20 things. So it becomes the same thing, right? Now you have to browse through all these lists and then figure out what are the actual best ones for you. So because as you were saying, it's one way, this thing, this relation, like these different technologies are not trying to get to know the client better to give him what he wants, but mostly what they're trying to do is get to know the client or the user better, just to sell them more stuff. So I think that's where the biggest issue comes in. Like it's a business model. Like we're going towards the right place because we're thinking a little bit more about user experience, right? And we're thinking about more about what the user actually needs. But the only thing is that we're the conclusion for that is okay. How can we grab this to sell them more stuff instead of how can we grab all this data to sell them the stuff that they actually need, which is not more necessarily, but just what they need. And this is gonna take some time, really, because there's so many people. I mean, the other issue with this is that you also need to realize that every user has a different context and they feel different things, and we as human beings we're just like this big ball of feelings that we don't even know how to deal with them. And all this technology actually takes advantage of that because that's why you see like all these different ads that they just pop up, and then sometimes you buy stuff just because it's an impulse of it. But it's the same thing, they're just pushing things onto you. So that's I think the main thing, like people, the general people, the general population or society itself, we need to realize that technology is here to stay, first of all. And it's not that we're going towards the future. Like we need to fix the things that we already have here because they're always telling us these things are, this is eventually we're going to do this thing. So what you have right now on your hand and whatever it is that you're complaining about is not as important because we're moving towards another goal. But if we realize like, no, we need to fix the things that we already have here right now, then more people are going to be uncomfortable or not as pleased with different companies, and then they're going to stop using their technology. And that's actually what needs to drive these different changes. Because if not, then companies are not going to be able to actually do, or well, they're never going to be able to, or they're never going to want to evolve if there's not a need for evolution, right?
that's a good point. So currently, what I'm observing is all the products that are on the market are 100% focused on serving the needs of the business that has produced them. And my dream for the longest time has been to see somebody produce an equivalent, some software service or product, which would be an equivalent of what we call a butler. So,
Right.
if, for example, if you're rich, you hire a butler. And this butler, his job is to learn all about you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your preferences? When do you do what and whatnot? To learn when not to interrupt you, to learn when is a good time to interrupt you and whatnot. Um, we could build software like that, that is focused on me, not on the
Mm-hmm.
business, serving me, but nobody's doing it. So I believe if we make that switch and we start seeing those products that learn from me, like you say, every person is different, a different ball of feelings and whatnot, preferences and
Mhm.
foibles and quirks. But that exactly is the area where we can really offer power, because imagine you having a butler.
Mhm.
Because right now, you may be using some app, and whether you use it for the first time or for the millionth time, the experience is the same. The app does not care about you, does not care about your habits or your preferences. It cares about the business, right? And
Yeah.
it sees you as a cow for milking and for taking advantage of, right? So to me, I'm not, I don't like that, right? I would like to have products that are 100% focused on me. And it's easy to do in software because software never forgets anything. It,
Yeah.
it retains absolutely everything that transpired. And now all we need is a layer of intelligence to and it's actually quite easy because there are patterns, and we have very powerful machine learning and neural networks that can quickly, kind of distill from the
Mhm.
copious amount of data certain patterns. And now you can say, like, if you hire a butler, you would train that guy. You would not expect butler from the day one walks in knows all about you, right?
Yeah.
The same would be, I would like to have a product here that I can train. I can tell you, no, 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 I don't like that. I like this. And he remembers, and you grow it. And after a few months, all of a sudden, this product is all about me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly doable, but nobody's doing it, right? This is what's really interesting. Um, for example, I'll give you one example. I'm pretty sure it will be quite easy to build a web browser that learns from you and that curates the content you're seeing.
Yeah.
You can stop any ads, you can stop any stupid things, and it will just prepare the view you like to see. And you can train it. You can say, look, I never want to see this. I never want to see that. And
Yeah.
it learns from you. I think it's not a rocket science to do that, yet nobody is building, nobody ever offered a browser like that. And listen, if we had a browser like that, all these businesses would quickly run out of steam because nobody's clicking anymore, because nobody's even seeing anything anymore.
Yeah.
Now that they will be forced to change the tune, right? Because right now my browser does not care about me. It just serves the business that's pushing some clickbaits and stuff on into my face, which I get annoyed by, but the browser doesn't care, right?
Yeah.
And I believe it shouldn't be that hard to train the browser to say, look, for each, he has my profile. I'm Alex. Alex doesn't like this, doesn't like that. He's off, always going that way and whatnot. So he's my butler, right? Right there, in very few months, the business loses me as a potential sheep to be, sheared
Yeah.
or how to be milked. So now they will have to think harder. How do they compete and how do they offer? So we're not protected. We don't have advocate. We don't have legal representation, or this is just like Wild West. I mean, these people are swooping into the uneducated crowds and just like milking them. And I think our job is to also raise awareness about that. Like, look, this is not ethical. You're taking advantage. There's a lot of people very naive, don't even realize what's going on. And nobody's telling them that. No, there's got to be a better way. And you have this phenomenal technology for very cheap, even for free, that can be your butler, that can become your faithful servant,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, your life becomes so much better because and some companies are doing a little bit Apple with Apple Watch and whatnot. It kind of learns about your health, your habits, and whatnot. But,
Mhm.
but still, I believe the main thing would be a browser, a starting point, a browser that you can teach it. You can say, look, don't curate the content for me. Don't just show me everything they're pushing on you, because the browser gets content and the browser can triage
Yeah.
before showing it to us, right? So
Mhm.
right there, you need a layer of intelligence that says, okay, my master went to visit this website or whatnot, and I'm getting all this avalanche of things. And let me triage. Let me see. Okay, I don't want to show this. I don't want to show that. I'm not going to show this. And all of a sudden, your browsing becomes much cleaner, right? And
Yeah.
then instead of I want to read something, as millions of these things pop. Just like what, right? I'm amazed that nobody has built that and still, right? As an open
Well,
source free.
yeah. Yeah, you know, I think you're right because I mean another example, another very useful example about that will be like I would like to actually have something like that installed in my parents' phone or computer,
Mhm.
and then just filter out all the conspiracy theories from Facebook and Twitter and all that,
Yeah,
and have them not see those things.
yeah,
I mean that would be great, and I think it's not difficult to do, but it's difficult to deploy and to have it running
yeah,
because the whole point of this is that it's not asking, like in my example, it's not asking my parents, yeah, but every time that you turn on your phone just make sure this thing is running or not.
yeah, yeah.
So we need like this entire infrastructure, and having it in your computer and just testing it is not that difficult. You can actually go into YouTube and just learn everything that you need to do to actually implement it,
Mhm.
and probably just have it running your computer fine. But then the thing is that if you really want to use it, to have your family use it, your house use it, you need to deploy it in some way, and that's difficult. If you go to, I mean, you have AWS and you have Google, what's it called, Google platform, something like that. I can't remember. But yeah, it's difficult. It's still to use, even if they have that free tier. It depends on the traffic and all that, and you get into so many technical details that then you end up having to know all these different topics just to deploy something that you're only going to use. So most people are probably going to say it's not worth the time, right? Because and then I don't know how much am I going to end up paying a month for each one of these things. So I think one of the things that we're missing, and I actually think this is the future for cloud services, is just like smaller companies actually getting into that market.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you think about cloud services, you think only about the big guys
Big
or
tech.
infrastructure itself. Yeah, but then there should be smaller companies actually offering these services, and maybe even in just in regional areas, just something in a city or a
Yeah.
maybe a state or something like
But
that.
that's one thing. But I'm talking more about the client device.
Yeah,
For example, let's say if I had the time, I would maybe toy with creating a new app for iPhone or for Android,
yeah,
and it will be called the Alex browser. And you can
mhm,
go and download this app, right? Now, when you use that app, you can browse the same as you browse in Chrome or Safari, or right? But my browser would focus on your habits and will enable you to curate the content and will be able to filter out all the noise
yeah,
and shows you just a signal. Now, right there, I think that would be quite an attractive proposition for many people to say, you know what, I'm switching over to Alex browser because it's so
yeah,
much cleaner and at the same time safer because nobody's harvesting my information, and it's an open source where you can go and check you can ask your friend, check the source code. It's not shipping any secretly any information about me anywhere. It's
mhm,
very because it's honestly should be ethical and very loyal to you as the end user, and not siphon any information left and right. So it's an open source project. It's a dedicated client device that simply serves uh, to make your life better by removing noise and amplifying the signal. Right. I think that I
yeah.
could use that. That would be phenomenally attractive. But you see, I don't have the time, and nobody's building that. And I'm wondering, why? Where are all these geniuses? Why are they not? Because it's doable.
Well, you do have like DuckDuckGo, and
I know, but
there's
that's not the client device. I want something on my client, on my laptop or on my phone, an app. So instead of me
yeah,
using Chrome, I open that one and I'm doing all my browsing and all my searches and all my. You can go to Google, doesn't matter. But for example, right now, if I go to Google in Chrome, it gives me top is just ads, right?
yeah,
Sponsored. My browser would not even show you sponsor. It would just filter out. So you can go to Google in my browser,
yeah,
search for something, and you get back quality because the Google sends you a lot of alphabet soup.
mhm,
The browser intercepts that and says, okay, this is sponsored, this is. I'm not even going to show him because
yeah,
it's. I never click on those paid, promotions. So now all of a sudden, you filter out Google's raw material, and so it's a curated um, search list, right?
Yeah,
So it's not about different search engines and whatnot. It's about when it comes to in front of you, in front of your eyes, you do final triage, and you just filter out quality material. And this browser learns from me what my preferences are, and it can ask me questions like, "So Alex, do you think this is something that you like?" I'm like, "No, never show me this ever again." Type of thing, I don't care. And it remembers, and it never does it again, right?
yeah.
That will be very attractive.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there's different applications out there, or different like smaller companies that are trying to do that. The only thing is that it's still kind of like a generalized solution. Like we have all these different applications that will block ads, and then there's a couple of different web browsers that actually work on every phone and every computer. I can't remember what are their names, but they're more secure, and they prevent like third party companies to actually harvest all your information, all that. But there's still like generalized solutions. They're not gonna be specific for like Alex or Josue. That's not gonna happen. The only way to actually have that is, I mean, and these projects are open source, so you can download it and then tweak it a little bit and then make it yours. But that's the only thing. Like you can do that, but then to actually have it using it in on your phone is not as simple. It's not as simple like just pushing something. I don't know if you've ever tried to push an application to like the Android Play Store or iOS Play Store, but it's not as straightforward. There's all these hoops that you need to jump over and all that. So that's what's
That
difficult.
could
It's
be
difficult to.
that could be done as a progressive web app, right? With the progressive
Yeah,
web app, you don't need to app store. You don't need to go through hoops, right? Um,
well, you don't need to do that, but you still need. I mean, it could be a PLUSA, but the only thing is that you still need to make sure that things are working on your phone in the way that they're supposed to be. Like it's no longer a local host kind of thing or a development environment.
yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah,
becomes a production kind of thing, which is, and that's the hard part. The hard part is not about can I tweak these things, but it's can I make him into a production thing that I can use, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because if you even if you tweak it and you get to install it on your phone, but then suddenly it doesn't work. I don't know. Maybe when you go to your bank's website, then you're not going to use it as much because you need to make sure that it works with everything and all that. So it's all those little things that makes it difficult. And it makes it difficult because right now we have all these systems out there that are totally different,
mm.
and they don't want you to just change them or tweak them in
Yeah.
different ways.
But at least from my general purpose browsing, and yeah, if you are doing your banking, then it's okay if you go to a specialized app, right? You don't
Yeah,
expect. And so certain things I'm okay. I'm doing some specific things, and I appreciate security and blah blah blah
yeah,
convenience. I don't need a general purpose browser for that, right?
yeah,
And actually, I would be concerned if I need. I would much rather go for a more tightly closed proprietary. But most of the time, we are doing reading, browsing, and whatnot. And uh, I would appreciate having a butler who knows exactly
yeah,
what I'm interested in and serves me, and is also guaranteeing that nothing leaks. No privacy, no health information, no financial, nothing leaks out to those corporations who are preying and looking to take advantage of people, right?
yeah,
So that again, we're back to I think user experience that degenerated into user exploitation. So the ethics of software is something that has been neglected in the legal sense, and anybody can just cobble up any crappy stuff and put it out and start um, really swindling and take advantage of people, and there's no repercussion, right?
yeah. That's happening a lot. Even, I mean, lately we've been kind of just like seeing the actual side effects of these ethics that are actually missing from software. And I think, I mean, these things are very like tightly coupled, because the solution for it is to in a way to take the power from the companies, because the company is always going to look for themselves, right?
Yeah,
I
of course.
mean, be it ethically. It doesn't really depends if it's ethical or not. It's just for themselves, for the company's sake. So the way to actually fix that, I mean, we can try and fix them from the inside, and it's something that software developers we always have to use. There, I mean, have to do. We need to do some kind of pushback on things that we think that they're not actually right to put out there. But also, people need to grab that control, and as you were saying, like just build things for yourself, right? Instead of go out there and buy these different applications and all that. The only thing is that right now it's not like software is not widely known, right? First of all, we still have all these gatekeepers saying like you need to have a computer science degree to actually be a software developer. But I mean, if you're just developing things for yourself for your own sake, you don't really need anything like that. You just need to go online and then learn everything that you need
Yeah,
and forget about like best software design patterns or whatever. It's just something that's gonna work for you. But
yeah,
if you go online and you start trying to learn, like if you forget everything about software, go online, try to learn all of these things, that's what you find. You find you need to first go and learn these design patterns. You need to follow these different things and all that. But that's okay for a company if you want to work in a company. But if you want to automate things on your house and all that, you don't need anything like that.
yeah,
You need more like hands-on, and this is what we need and all that. Eventually, I think that's what's going to happen. Eventually, we're going to be in some kind of like Star Wars future where people are just like messing around with their pods. It's going to be the same way. People are going to be messing around with their phones and all that. But right now, that's not possible because there's so much like mystery and mystique kind of around software. And people like, I mean, whenever I talk to my family, even, it's like, well, I can't even understand what you're doing. I'm like, I'm not doing anything super complicated. The most complicated thing that I'm doing is just talking to a bunch of people and trying to figure out what they want. That's what we're doing. So that I think that's one thing that needs to happen first. Like new generations need to come around and say like this is not as difficult if you just want to do things better for yourself. So let's just start messing around with these things, and instead of going out there and buying or downloading this new application from a company that I don't know what they're doing, let me just build my own with these open source tools.
yeah. And I think you're right. I think we need to get to the point where you can hire a digital butler or a virtual butler, and then this thing is trainable.
Yeah,
So it will observe what you're doing. It can do it, right? It will record everything you're doing, and then you can specifically or explicitly train it, or it could be implicit that this butler is spent maybe a week or two observing you and comes one day to you say, "Hey, I've been noticing that you always do this first, then you do that first, and then you is that something that you do always? I can automate that for you, or is it just?"
yeah,
And you can say, "Oh yeah, thank you for noticing. I wasn't even aware that I'm always doing this, this, and that." Becomes automated chore. I don't have to do it anymore. Or you can
yeah,
say, "No, no, no, no. I like to do it myself. Thank you, but no thank you." Right? So it should really be focused on you 100% because it's possible. Software, again, doesn't take bathroom breaks, doesn't go
yeah.
sleep. So this is really the promise of software, that it is focused on bettering my life as a person.
Exactly.
Right?
The
And
only thing is that is not right now is not reachable for everyone,
right, but
or it doesn't look like it.
I know, but things change, right?
Yeah,
20, 30 years ago, it was unthinkable. Now all of a sudden we are doing, you and I are chatting and all that. That was
yeah,
would be amazing, right? So things change, and we are seeing some really promise of some breakthroughs, and things will change. And you're right, it's going to be democratized. Yesterday I talked with a friend of mine who is working on a project. His goal is to uh, enable 1 billion people to write software. So that's
oh, that's cool.
so he says, I want 1 billion people to be able to just write software, and that software should be pretty error free, right? So he has
Yeah,
ideas and whatnot, right? And these things are gonna come and happen, right? But again, the whole point is, who is this software serving, and the
yeah,
ethics. And we need, you and I are paying taxes, and we live in a civilization, and we rely on my tax dollar. I think should go towards protecting me from predators, right? Instead of
yeah,
open season, like go for soccer. There is a soccer born every minute. Go for them. I don't care. Ha ha ha. Right? No. Look, I'm paying taxes. I pay a lot of taxes in Canada. I'm expected to be protected. If I buy a car, I'm expecting I don't have to test it myself. I don't have to drive a car against the wall just to see if the airbag deploys. I'm I'm relying on my government to have regulations that
Yeah.
guarantee that my car comes in with safe all the safety things that keep me safe, right? Same should be with software. When I buy a product, my government should guarantee that no, there's not going to be any monkey business. Nobody's going to take advantage of you and trick you, right?
Yeah.
This is not happening in software, and that's a big problem because software is open season hunting for just go for suckers, right? It's a big problem, and a lot of people, and there's cyberbullying and there's racism and there's terrible
Yeah.
things, right? That needs to stop, right? Same as in I cannot go. You cannot go out on the square on the street and hear somebody yelling hate speech and whatnot. They will be taken away. But
Yeah, no, I think it's also because I mean software is just very new, so there, and yeah, we need some kind of protection because
yeah,
we don't always know like what's going on. But the only thing is that there's so many loopholes right now. I mean,
yeah,
take the solar winds hack. They're still figuring out like who actually was the person that did it or
mhm.
entity or whatever, right? So there's still so many things that we don't know even how to manage about software or technology itself.
Well, on that note, and we're both positive and kind of pessimistic, but things are looking up. And
Yeah.
I need to. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop. Need to go. I would like to chat some more, but um, also, I really want to thank you. This has been a very engaging and pleasant conversation, and I
Oh,
learned
thank you.
from you. We can continue when you have some time, and thank you for joining.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed this.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So
Thanks a
we'll
lot.
continue chatting and on Twitter and etc.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a
Awesome.
great day.
Later.